see an uptake, will see an intake. It is a voluntary system, as the minister explained. We have just finished now. I'm told the standard operating procedure has been finished, and by the 1st of April, we're going to start implementation, and we have in our budget for this year made funds available for funds. We might not have enough of cash. However, we've had some interest, and also and so we are mobilizing some resources to make sure that there is an uptake, and so far as voluntary integrity testing or polygraph testing. This is in addition to, Honorable Chair, to some of the initiatives that we've also been doing, including having making sure that staff that managers speak to their staff, and also making sure that we do have wellness programs and support programs for those staff that might or might not be involved in this process, who are impacted by what is happening, because sometimes what does affect the morale of staff and management is dealing with this issue is that there is a blanket approach that everyone is corrupt, or everyone is in the pockets of the syndicates, and sometimes it does demoralize, and we continue to make sure that there is work being done to make sure that there is we support staff, and also and management is responsible for that. With regard to, I think the framework for the expansion of 30 by 30 that was asked by Honorable Winkler, and I think the CEO of SANParks started to talk about the framework and how, as the entity working with the department, they are assisting with this the department. But just from a SANParks point of view, we are also looking at how do we reimagine protected areas, and this includes a number of things. It includes looking at. I mean, we have. I think we have briefed the committee before that that plans are afoot, and working with other NGOs and other provincial and the province in the Eastern Cape with the Grassland National Park. We're starting to look at different models of expanding the conservation estate, and that looks at looking at part of it, the stewardship program or private sector land being brought in, and also starting to look at community land, and looking at us as SANParks also being part of that. Insofar as this way of a new way or approach in terms of expanding our conservation estate might or might not have legal implications, we would then be taking the process forward. But from our side, we are doing work in just identification as part of our park expansion planning unit at SANParks, to make sure that we continue to have a representative system of national of land under conservation or under conservation, of which national parks are a significant component thereof. And we are working then under the guidance of the department, as indicated in my opening remarks, on making our own contribution towards the attainment of the target of 30 by 30. With regard, Honorable Modisa, with regard to the issue of the CEO, I think the minister has answered that question. Safe to say that we were equally concerned as the board, and hopefully within a short while, then that process will be completed. We have had in the last 2 months, unfortunately through natural attrition, lost the CFO, who has taken a job in another entity. That's why you have an acting CFO. And that position has been advertised. It closed yesterday, and we will be prioritizing the filling of that position as the board. And fortunately, that is within the ambit of the board, and we don't. So we would be able to prioritize this and make sure that is filled as soon as possible. And we have also, I don't know if we have Honorable Chair indicated or introduced to yourselves that that now in the Kruger National Park, we also have the ME or the head of Kruger National Park. He assumed office beginning of the year. And as someone who has worked in the sector and who's got experience of working in the sector, having worked in the private sector, as well as Mvelo, we think that will help us in terms of stabilization in that regard. With regard to the issue of land claims, Honorable Weber, we have, we have been working on this in terms of land claims in the Kruger National Park. We have provided reports to the committee, and we will continue to provide such reports. But safe to say that as part of taking the process to the next level and around beneficiation for land claimants, we've secured the services of Judge Moseneke, who will be then the independent facilitator of the process, and the officials are working with him to make sure that at least the process between communities and ourselves and also the commission is speeded up. With regard to, I think, the issue of and I think it was Honorable Weber that asked the question around the donations. The acting CEO can give a little bit more detail on this, but just a couple of points to make in this regard. One is that one of the things that SANParks prides itself is our ability to manage and look after game in the wild. And what also happens, and as much as part of management, is to make sure that also the habitat and the range of those species is also, we also look at that in an integrated manner. So what, in terms of the donation we do, or when there is an impact with regard to like we've had in this case drought, when we look at our donation policy, we also don't want to do that at the expense of keeping viable populations. So so we still want to our scientists continue to look at what then would then be viable populations in a particular area. Also looking at the range of the natural habitat range that those species occur. And having said that, I also want to say that there is also a level of resilience that the animals do have with regard to some of the weather conditions that they're subjected to. Before we do donations, we then look at what is viable. And that it is in that context that we have not met our target, because we didn't want to then not have viable populations, and therefore we managed how many animals or that we could make available as part of the game donation process. That's why we were short in the numbers. And why we short primarily is to do what Honorable Weber was raising, is to keep those populations as viable as possible. And Mr. Mokoena, the acting CEO, will cover what are then the requirements that we have with regard to and the criteria and the monitoring system that applies to game that we've donated. I'm going to leave it at that, Honorable Chair, and ask Mr. Mokoena and the COO to respond to the remaining questions. Thank you.
Mr. Mokoena.
Thank you, Chair and honorable members. I will touch on some of the questions, but I think the Chair has sort of comprehensively covered them. So just for our expansion of our additional parks, we've got a national expansion strategy, which belongs to the country, and all protected areas, including national parks, if they need to expand their national parks, they fall under that. So in the context of SANParks, we've got a land inclusion plan, which identifies all portions of land which are sort of underrepresented in terms of biodiversity. Then that plan, we use that plan for expanding our estate. And the issue of visitor safety, especially in the Kruger National Park. So we've got a safety and security plan for the park. That plan is an integrated plan which includes other law enforcement agencies, because you will appreciate that you need to deal with crime not only inside but even outside our national parks. We have done several interventions in terms of communication and bringing awareness in that area. We are not doing that alone. SAPS is on board. The MEC for safety in Mpumalanga is on board. In SAPS, we've got Brigadier Tabete, who is our link person when it comes to that. Not only law enforcement agencies are dealing with it, we have sort of mobilized communities as well along the Nyumbi Road to be part of this program. And we are doing just as recent as by the 24th of March, a site visit in that area with all these stakeholders, including the communities. And there was a question around how can drought impact on the removal of game. As you know, that drought it's sort of an unplanned event, and it hits you while you have planned your removal before that year. And once a park is hit by drought, the felt condition definitely will be of poor quality, and the animals themselves may go through some strain in terms of the condition of the animals, which means if you subject them to removal, you may increase your mortality rate, which we don't want to have. Even if you argue to say you will take it here and take it to a non-drought area, but the impact will be when you capture it in that area where the drought is. I think Chair spoke about resilience of some of the animals. So you will allow that the drought season to sort of run its course and the felt improve, then you will introduce your capture. And capturing of animals, members, it's not done throughout the year. There's a particular season or there's a particular time period where you need to capture animals so that you avoid a negative impact even on the young ones. So that's the reason which has caused that target not to be met. In terms of our plan, we've got our climate change mitigation plan in each and every park, and we are revising those. I wanted to come to the donation of animals. So we've done 2 rounds in SANParks. We call for interested emerging game farmers. So they don't approach us, we publish it in national newspapers for them to apply. On that call, we list the animals which are available for donation. Usually it's plains game animal, which means it's your kudu, your impala, your zebra, your giraffe, in our case. And then once we do that, we then receive the applications. When we receive the applications, we then establish committees, site visit committees, so that when Mr. Mokoena says he's got a farm in Bilabila, that committee will go there and inspect the farm in terms of the condition of the farm, the boundaries of the farm, which species are suitable for that particular farm. We've got like 8 categories which we assess. One, we assess the property, which is the farm itself, whether it exists and is there. And we assess wildlife distribution, which means if you want to host a springbok, it's in a grassland and occurs there, so that you avoid a situation where you host animals which does not belong there. Then we assess habitat suitability, whether if you want to host a particular animal, there's food for that animal, or there's grass for that animal, or there's browse, or there's leaf for that animal. Then we go further to say wildlife management history. So we want to check whether that farm has ever hosted that particular animal which you are interested in. Then we go to the legal history of the entity. If you've got a farm, who owns this farm? Is this farm emerging a farm, or is this farm not your farm, or you're fronting? We look at that. Then we come to the security management of the farm. We want to check whether you've got some staff or rangers who will monitor the animal. Then lastly, almost last, we go to the governance of that farm. So you must have sort of a manager of the farm, people who are maintaining the farm, people who are responsible for the upkeep of the farm, so that you don't have a situation where you donate animals, then the next thing, there's no one to look after those animals. The 8 categories, they get assessed and scored independently from 0 to 5. Then after that, you will then be shortlisted. Once you're shortlisted, this thing gets presented to EXCO as a committee, and then from there it will go to the subcommittee of the board. After that, then it will go to the board for approval on the recommended beneficiaries. After that, you will then get a letter to say, this is awarded to you. This is the number of animals which will be translocated to your farm. And we put a condition there to say subject to availability, because we are aware that certain things can happen which may cause these animals not to be available. Once we deliver animals in your farm, we make you to sign a custodianship. Given these animals to look after on behalf of SANParks and on behalf of South Africa. Should we go and come and inspect and find that the animals are not in good condition, or we are not managing it properly, we will definitely remove those animals. So that's how the wildlife program is conducted. And then there was an issue of that target around removal and cutting. I think that one is to do with our removal of game, but this target basically has to do with our revenue. That will sell animal animals at a value of 6 million. However, we could not achieve that because of the animals. So we'll run an auction online, and people will bid and they will buy the animals and they'll come and capture those animals to their respective farms. And another issue which in the human capital. So if you are a TB area like National Park, you get quarantine, which that applies even in the farming area because to a particular species. But if you introduce our legislation and compromising the populations which are there, so that becomes a limitation in that people who are receiving this no way with the members on a different angle. So we've got range awareness programs which we call Project Embrace and Project Relax, which we target in our rangers because of the work which they do. We are doing constant counseling for our rangers. We've got a service provider who's helping us in that regard. If our rangers are exposed in any incident, we immediately intervene and do that counseling, and we've extended that to their families as well. We do a career path which we target our rangers as well. We have a hotline where any activities which is illegal can be reported by both people in SANParks and external public. We are strengthening our community engagements in terms of having people who are supporting us in the communities and giving us information in the fight of the cause of our work. We are part of the major or the security clusters in any region or in any park across the areas where we are managing national parks. I think I've tried to cover some of the key points. I'll hand over to COO just to finish some of the question. Thank you, Chair. Lisa.
Thank you very much, Acting CEO, and good afternoon to the Honourable Minister in absentia, the Honourable Deputy Minister, Honourable Chair, members, and all of my honourable colleagues. Chair, I'm just going to respond to the three questions related to human capital. Firstly, the question was asked around the HR spent ratio in terms of operations versus HR cost. Just to indicate that currently the National Environmental Management Protected Areas Act require that the board sets a limit of the total expenditure that can be spent on HR. That expenditure is currently capped by the board at 56%. And this original figure that was based on benchmarking that was done by the department in 2018,